Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Class Act at Kauai Community College, the show that highlights campus happenings and goes deeper with its professors and students so you can hear why this is where you want to be. It's that time. Let's get it on.
Welcome to a new episode here at Kauai Community College. Today is a very great day. Not only is the weather incredible and the sun shining, but I get to sit down with one of Kauai Community College's finest professors. And, I'm not sure how much comedy is going to be in this episode, but get ready to laugh, get ready to have some fun, because on the other side of the table, I've got a man that needs no introduction. He goes by the name of August Graybosch. He is the art professor here at Kauai Community College. Am I correct about that, August?
I am currently the art professor at KCC, yes.
Now, I want to start with your background. I want to start with getting to know you a little bit, and I want folks who are listening to get to know you a little bit before they step into your classroom. Tell me where you're from. Tell me what you have accomplished so far, because I know you're well accomplished, and where you went to school.
Where I went to school. All right, so I'm going to answer that backwards because
Okay.
That's how I remember the questions.
Perfect.
So for undergrad, I went to UC San Diego, and then I went to Columbia in New York for my master's in fine art. Second question, what have I accomplished so far?
Yeah.
Well, my greatest accomplishment is being a good art professor.
Yes.
Yeah. But other than that, I did a lot of exhibiting in New York for painting and drawing. And what I ended up doing was I still continue that practice, but I sort of saw the art making skills, how they could translate so well into just marketing and
Right.
product design. So I started building guitar amplifiers. And that has worked for me pretty well. That kind of took over, and they sold a lot faster too than my paintings and drawings. So
Right.
it gave me a broad sense of what art can be. And it's been great being here because when I do these independent studies, I'm not the one coming up with the ideas. The students are already predisposed
Right.
to having a fishing lure company or whatever it is they bring my way in terms of wanting to pursue that as a career afterwards.
Okay, we'll touch a little bit more on that in just a minute. Tell me all the different things that you teach here at Kauai Community College.
So I teach drawing. That also is involved in the creative media program. So there's two sections of that. One's at night because I want to make sure that it's open to the adult community and students that work during the day.
Right.
I also teach painting, both oil and watercolor, which is a lot of fun. And it's great to see people really put a lot of time into an artwork and follow through with their drawing skills.
Okay.
And realize that. And then I also teach Intro to Art, which is half history, half really eclectic projects.
Okay.
From things like graffiti to introductory drawing, watercolor, etc. But it's also a writing class, and that's been really enjoyable to teach aesthetics and help the students with their writing.
Okay. So that class in particular, since we're on the subject, that is probably more a traditional classroom setting, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lecture involved in that. That takes up a good portion of class time. But at the same time, it's always good to leave a little bit open and then
Right.
to meet your students and curate a couple courses or a couple activities to what their interests are. And that's,
Certainly, it's a great thing.
yeah.
I want to talk about the foundational side of drawing because, as you mentioned earlier, with Kauai Community College having a creative media program and so on, drawing and the ability to draw, the ability to understand the fundamentals of drawing and art in itself really are foundational to everything else that comes after that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'd go a step further and say it's foundational for anything entrepreneurial because you're given this blank canvas and a loose prompt, and you sort of have to have the self-reliance to figure it out for yourself.
Right.
So that, in my situation, gave me confidence to learn electronics and start a guitar amplifier company and not think twice about it, because I'd already taken some colors in a tube and made photorealistic paintings.
Right.
Which, that in itself was a little bit bizarre and eye-opening the first time you start achieving things like that.
Let me touch a little bit on a little bit more into your actual teaching. As a student of yours for several semesters now.
Thanks for taking my classes, Teague.
I am actually the lucky one. For anybody who is interested in taking some of the greatest classes, the art classes here with August are incredible. I'll vouch for that personally. But let's talk about you teach in a very, I guess, what I look at as kind of like an unorthodox way. It's being a young guy yourself, you teach in a way where students you're really able to connect with students on their own level, no matter what walk of life that they come from. And I assume that is something that has helped you, or at least allows you to be able to reach them on a deeper level, so to speak, within the classroom. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you spend a semester or sometimes multiple semesters getting to know these individuals, and you become invested in their success. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you're a teacher, right? So you're not their friend.
Right.
You have to give
There's
them
that line.
You have to give them a grade at the end, and there's always a little awkward moment where they're trying to figure you out in the beginning, right? But I think students are smart. They can tell whether you care, and I'm always very concerned with getting the lesson across and having them learn, and it's a lot easier to do that when they sense that you care.
Right.
And they'll pay attention and show up. And but for me, when I think of how I teach, I think about demonstrations. Uh-huh. I like to show various ways how to do things, and I also really believe that students can make up their own minds, whether they're going to do it exactly like that or they're going to deviate from it. Mm-hmm. So I don't really think that giving information or skills corrupts their minds and they end up being realists. I just think it's valuable to know those things, and they're also teachable things, whereas some abstraction is so out there. It's not really, you can give a lesson, but it's like verbal instructions and a little bit about materials.
Right.
So I just try to make sure that they know and have been exposed to that subject. Uh-huh. Whether they master every facet of it or not is up to their interests and them. Right. But I want them to leave not having any questions on how something is done. They go to a museum, they've experienced the materials, or I've explained to them or shown them what's going on.
Right, so they have a deeper understanding as to what they're looking at and so on.
Yeah, because you can just have so many pitfalls in art making that have nothing to do with your actual talent.
Right, and that makes sense. Something else I want to touch on is the fact that you teach both intro students and intermediate students. And you touched earlier about entrepreneurship and how important that is in what you want to drive home to these students. In the intro classes, obviously you focus on the basics, and going into the intermediate classes, you focus, would it be safe to say that you focus more on the individuals themselves and creating their own entrepreneurship within whatever media they choose or so on? Would that be safe?
Yeah, I'm very open, and I'm enthusiastic about it. I mean, first of all, I identify with that mindset. Mm-hmm. But again, not every place is like this island. I've taught elsewhere, and I didn't tell Hunter Cabral to do fishing lures. He came and was doing that already. I just worked with him a bit and tried to give him some time and some input so that he could see that through. And as an artist, I do not think there should be any shame in getting paid to do something. Right. So if someone's coming up to me, like we have this semester some silk screening starting up, and they're doing a clothing company, that's great. I wouldn't get in the way of that. I hope it's extremely successful. And again, I don't take credit for it. It's just it seems to be what the culture is like on this island. And there's a lot of individuals and just the community in general that want to see people succeed and manufacture and make things. And we're actually in a pretty good location, being right in between Japan and right in between the West Coast.
Right.
And then also, the tourism industry is
huge.
Yeah. So it's, you don't have to be poor to be an artist. You can make quite a bit of money. And I encountered that with some of my classmates going through the schools I did. And when I heard that I went to the same school as the guy that did the GoPro and he went through my art program.
Wow.
I was like, well, why not be like that guy a little bit too?
Exactly.
My love for painting and drawing is always going to be on the forefront of my mind and what my activities are, but you have to enable yourself to do those things unless you really hit it big, right?
Right.
And that's not always controllable.
Right, exactly. And, I think the focus that you're putting out really is the fact that the old school term that I've heard growing up is, starving artist?
Yeah.
It really doesn't have to be the case, and really is not really anything these days, especially with the way the society has gone, I guess, today. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I think that, just humanity in general is creative, whether it's making paintings, guitar amps like I do,
right,
fishing lures, or philosophical concepts and ideas.
Right.
So if you're in that kind of mindset and you are looking to create, but you're also open to making money with it, then I think that there's a lot of potential in that. And it's also, when someone comes up to me, say they want to do a graphic novel or a comic book, that was something that was proposed recently. I'm not necessarily thinking I don't think how do we make money in this right away? I listen and I'm like, that's what this person wants for a career. Let's figure it out.
Right.
So
you lead the way in figuring out how to take an idea from a student standpoint and turn it into something and capitalize on it, so to speak.
Yeah. And it's not, I don't listen to graphic novel, comic book and say, well, is that going to make money or not? Mm-hmm. I think, how are we going to make money on that? Because he's told me what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's not if, but how.
Yeah, and what better time than this kind of insulated bubble of going through school and bouncing around and figuring out your interests to try something like that and see if it's going to be lucrative than when, you get out and, you don't necessarily want to take such a risk,
right, perhaps.
So, that really is it. And I look forward to the future. There are schools, like you talked about drawing being a real foundation. If you go to, there's a school in Milan that designs cars, right? They're going to teach you drawing. You go to fashion school, they teach you drawing. It's a way of seeing what something looks like before you have to make it or manufacture it.
Right.
And then it's visual communication, but also it's just a way to take whatever it is, you're thinking of and say, let's see what it looks like.
Now, I don't want to get off of this subject, but I want to change gears for a second. You mentioned earlier that you taught at other schools. So have you always taught on the collegiate level, or have you taught at different levels, or?
My first teaching jobs were special education based.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I taught, I was a behavioral technician, and I worked mostly with students that were on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
And I've taught pretty much if you count early college at Kauai, I've taught every grade.
Wow.
Yeah. So and there's great things about all of it.
Right.
So it's definitely a fulfilling job. It's good, but I really enjoy teaching here, and I have taught at other colleges, and I'm very pleased with the students that I've encountered. And I also just am thankful that I am enabled to actually get to know the students and do these projects. And, hope it means a lot to see them succeed. You know? So that doesn't happen when you're in a class with 100, and a lot of college rankings are based on the research a professor does, not how great of a teacher they are. Sometimes you'll be in a breakout session with a grad student, and here, I actually get to really work with students, and
I think that's one of the unique things, and we've seen this kind of over and over in a trend, so to speak, with the different people that we've talked to here at Kauai Community College. And that's one of the greatest things, it seems, is that for those folks like yourself who have come through these major universities, you specifically coming through Columbia, you had classrooms that had in upwards of 100, 200, maybe 300 students in one single class. And you really are just a single number, so to speak. And here we have the chance to interact with you on a daily basis and on a much more personal level, so that we actually get personal guidance and direction from you, and we really truly learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. With Columbia, though, I was 1 out of 10, so that's sort of where I picked this up.
Okay.
But the undergrad, UC San Diego, or probably Columbia's undergrad, that's when you were in classes with, a sea of people.
Wow.
Which, I mean, there was something, there definitely is something good about that, right? Just like
certainly.
Online teaching, I think it's beneficial for students to have different teachers and, to experience different styles of teaching. But yeah, here, I can be right there face to face, have individual conversations within a class session, while others are working, and that's invaluable to me.
Really cool. I want to touch on another subject, seeing as you had mentioned teaching over at Kauai High School. And do you feel like there are certain things that can be done on a high school level to prepare students for what they're going to encounter within Kauai Community College in your specific classes?
So how does early college prepare them?
I guess you could say either early college or just with what you've seen within the high school level of things here. Do you feel like there's anything that students can do to prepare themselves for your classes, or maybe get themselves a level up before they actually set foot into your classroom?
So when I went to the high school classes, what was on my mind was really go in there and show them something new every time. Because, high school is, you have to go, you're there, and you should, and in my class, you have to come to my class. But at the same time, part of what retains students is like, you have to be considerate of their time. So if they're showing up and they're not, maybe they have childcare responsibilities, perhaps they have, they could be making $50 bussing tables.
Maybe they have a new dog. I mean,
yeah,
whatever
exactly,
the case
a new
may
dog.
be.
I've been there, right? God, I love that dog. But anyways, you have to make it so that they understand that you care and you value their time.
Right.
So when I was at early college, I just tried to get that across. And again, that comes down to demonstrations, drawing things in front of them, giving them a structure,
Right.
And then they can say, okay, this makes total sense. Or you try again with a different structure, and that's what ends up happening is something clicks for one of them in one way. So I don't think, am I going to teach this way, or am I going to teach it that way? I have the faith in my students that I can show them both. And if one makes sense than the other, they just know that that's cognitively how they are going to adapt to drawing or whatever that art making is. And then the other might come in handy later. It might make sense down the road, but yeah, we still don't really know how the brain works, and that's sort of, yeah.
It's been incredible to sit down with you, August, on this level. And I've been very fortunate to be within your classes and work with you on a real personal level with different projects and stuff. And you bring a wealth of knowledge to the table that I don't think we get to see too often, in the respect that there's just so much more that goes on with, student and professor relationships and so on and so forth, and really creating a bond within the classroom that carries on through the rest of their lives, so to speak. And I think it's a great thing to be able to witness for the students that you have helped out. Like we mentioned Hunter earlier with his lures. He's become really successful from what I can tell and from what I know. And there are many other students that you're working with, and they're all becoming successful in their own right. So, it's funny, you say you take no credit, but it really goes to show how much you really care within the classroom for these students. So we thank you. Kauai Community College is blessed to have you, and thanks for sitting down with me. I believe, in fact, I know that if I can help it, you're going to be sitting down with me on another episode, or maybe a few more, because we have a lot to talk about and different things we can laugh about.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, this was very fun. It wasn't funny, right?
Yeah,
so
we'll have to have a funny episode with August Graybosch.
It's my pleasure, and thanks. And really, I can't take credit, because if the students don't show up and do the work, then it doesn't matter if I'm the greatest teacher ever. There's nothing there, So it really, especially in Hunter's case, that guy was already on his way,
yeah.
Right? But thanks, yeah. It's just it's been a nice fit, and I really enjoy my time here, and I'm looking forward to the future, and hopefully down the road seeing a bunch of people getting paid to do something.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Steve Harvey said it best. You can't be famous without people. Kauai Community College, it's the place to be, sitting down with August Graybosch. Another incredible day.
Thank you for listening to the Class Act at Kauai Community College. The views and opinions shared by the host and any guests are solely theirs and do not reflect the feelings or opinions of Kauai Community College as an institution. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast with our professor, check out the other episodes with different professors. Aloha.